Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this day 2 of the Ultimate Tournament. Today we have a great game between Wild Kittens and Dunedin Friends in the second game of the day. My name is Will Druzianic.
And I'm Caitlin Wood.
And we will be your commentators for today. The weather is looking quite nice today. Quite a sunny day, not too much of a breeze. Shouldn't affect the Frisbee's flight too much.
There's a bit of a wind coming from where Dunedin and Friends are, going to about where Wild Kittens are, so that should affect a few of the throws.
It's currently 16 degrees and there is a eastern breeze at 2 kilometres an hour.
The teams today are pretty well matched, so we've got Wild Kittens, which is the Wildcats Club's B team coming out.
And here's their players. We have Sam McKivitt, Philip Harvey, Sam Masters, Reese Hearn, Kazuhira Simon Sao, Tim Buckenberg, Clayton Dath, Angus Horan, Andy Zhu, Richard Oughton, Austin Clark, Theo Moore, Sean Gardner, Kelby Clements and Benjamin Stiggers.
And then our Otago and Friends team has Ben Webber, Graydon Scott, Matthew Wilson, Elliot Wilson, Tim Adler, Kazuki Esterel, Rory Liston, Jack Payne, Jeff Busamati, Will Rodriguez, Michael Ernst, Callum Shimon, Harrison Free, Sam Middleton, Patrick Main, Joshua Wong and George Skinner.
We should have quite the game today. It is, of course, day 2 of the tournament, so we still have plenty of games going on. The last one going overtime by about 20 minutes, and it was quite the close game to watch. But here we have Wild Kittens in the black shirts and Otago and Friends in the white shirts.
It looks like the Wild Kittens are starting on offense today with Otago and Friends pulling down to them. With the players from Wellington and Dunedin, we can speak probably a lot of a big game with lots of big shots going up. The Wellington players are pretty good with playing with the wind, and the Dunedin players really like a little bit of huck and D, so I'm looking forward to seeing some big shots across the field today.
Based off what I saw them when they were training, it did look like they were practicing a lot of long distance passes, so that'll be interesting to see whether they bring those into the game.
The hand is up, so the pull is looking like it'll be going up in a few seconds. Otago's just having a wee discussion before they get ready to put that pull up.
And Otago signals they're ready.
And the disc is up and the game begins.
A great pull to start off with, getting well past the halfway mark and almost drifting in towards the end zone.
And a great run down by that player number 28, 23. Looking like they're just doing a bit of match defense here. A bit of a force towards that grandstand behind them.
A good couple short passes from Wild Kittens here, getting it up the field with a lot of speed.
Looks like they're working through their full team here. And there's a bit of downfield movement, but they're really looking for that sort of swing to move around the field, I think.
Great recovery there as well from Wild Kittens. Unfortunately, not being able to score that point as it just slips out of his hand.
That was Simon Kazuya with the bid there. And we've got Otago and Friends looking for it. There's a nice swing there. And that's a beautiful swing with a lot of space now. They've got a lot more field to play with as they play out wide.
A lot less pressure on them to get it out of there. As when you're playing quite close to your own end zone, you have to be really careful not to give them a turnover.
There's that big game we were talking about previously. Not quite the shot they were looking for, I'm sure, but pretty good indication of the game that's coming.
Unfortunately, just drifted outwards, but definitely the right kind of distance to really get it towards the end zone.
And looks like Wild Kittens having a bit of a slower pickup. They've set themselves up in a vertical stack, so that means they'll have traditionally 2 handlers and then a bit of movement cutting out of that vertical line that you see in the middle of the field. And that's some great upfield movement that they've got there. They're really working it down that one sideline, favouring that side.
Great pressure being applied by Otago now, not making it easy for these passes.
And that's a great point there. That went from, I think, number 12 to a person whose number I can't see.
12 Watkins. Simon, another great pass then from him. First point of the game does go to Wild Kittens. I'm sure we've got quite the game in store. And as we can see on the replay, just these short little passes and a great catch here, a running catch after this throw, which managed to get it just close enough to the end zone.
Oh, I was incorrect. It looks like it's 27 who did the pass.
A great pass from 27.
27, who's Austin Clark. That was a great pass by them.
They're now resetting, and the pool will still be taken by Wild Kittens.
It should be interesting to see if Otago can pull off that bigger gameplay there. They've got a little bit more wind advantage this direction, so it should hopefully mean that their bigger puts can come off.
A little bit of team discussion, talking about what worked, what didn't, and what they can change. And they're signaling that they're ready.
And the pull is up. Beautiful pull by that 72, I think. Yep.
Great low throw that's just drifted back inwards, and a great catch from Otago.
And there, the two handlers that you've got there are Matt and Graydon. They are traditionally on the Otago University team, which is where a lot of the Otago players are from. And a great catch by Jack. Beautiful throw there.
Otago just managed to get enough players into the end zone where it gave who was throwing many options.
So that went from Jack Payne to Ben Webber there, and it was a great put. We'll just have a look at that replay
Great play,
there.
just finding space, seeing who's available, handlers taking their time, a couple of passes, make some space, and just work their way up the line.
And that big put came from number 44, Harrison Free, to Jack Payne, then finishing with Ben Webber there.
That takes the score back to 1-1.
Now, Otago's got a bit of a smaller roster this weekend. They had a few people pull out right before the game. Can be quite difficult for teams like Otago, where they're mainly a university team, where they have their players go away over summer and then they bring it back in for this tournament. So they will be sort of gaining flow throughout the tournament, I think, because they haven't had many opportunities to train together.
Wouldn't be surprised if we saw them slowly work better and better together as the game goes on.
But
Great pull from Otago. Wild Kittens letting it go to the ground.
And Sam Masters there with the disc. He's a very experienced player, and that's a beautiful put by him. And a great catch.
Covering a great distance across the field, and they're able now to apply a lot of pressure on Otago before they can get their defense back there. Minor stoppage and play.
It looks like a foul call there. That's a foul call. There's just been a foul that's happened around the stack. And the disc has come back into play.
Play resumes.
That's a great swing cut there, but quite a difficult throw with that wind coming up. And a beautiful put there, and that was
a diving catch from Wild Kittens.
Number 73 to number 12 there, so 73 is the captain, Sam McKivitt.
And we've got Simon receiving it, number 12 in the end zone. A beautiful diving catch, as you can see, just too high. Great catch there, and then just a really low pass, just sails it across straight to the player, ready to grab it. Great job, great catch there from Simon. They're now resetting. That takes it to 2-1 to the Wild Kittens. It seems like we have quite the high-scoring game today.
Now, the Wild Kittens being from Wellington, they definitely have a bit more experience in the wind conditions that are coming out here on the field. They're a team that's traditionally trained together, oftentimes with their other team from their club. So their overall club is the Wildcats. And they have a lot of developing players you can see on the field, and they're got a mixture of experience levels, which will be interesting to see play out and how they play with the Frisbee. And that pull's gone up, with Otago coming down to receive it.
Drifting all the way into the end zone. Great catch there from Otago. It is always risky catching the first pull, because if you do drop it, it does become a turnover.
That's an excellent hand block that's happened there by number 27, Austin Clark. A great hand block there.
These turnovers are important, putting a lot of pressure back in the end zone after just scoring.
Oh, and then that's an example of the conservation of greatness. He did a great hand block and then unfortunately threw that away. It happens to us all, and it's one of the things with the sport.
Wild Kittens is going to want to get another turnover as quickly as they can. Unfortunately, just throwing while thinking their teammate was running the other direction.
Ooh, and
very fast place here from Otago. Unfortunately, just out of reach from one of the offense's hands. And it just sails over and lands in the end zone, which will be a turnover.
And Wild Kittens here is just looking to set that vertical stack. You can see the players are indicating that they're just going to set that layout there. Typically in a vertical stack, you see a lot of movement from the back of the stack coming out in either direction, then looking for sort of a bigger spaced cut. So it'll be interesting to see if they've got a traditional stack or a bit more of a different movement.
Wild Kittens wants to get this out of their own end zone. Great pass there, just finding space and managing to get it to an unmarked player.
And there's a nice little bit of movement in here. They've broken out a bit from their stack, and I think it's benefiting them because I think they got a little bit stuck up in there. They're really looking for up the line movement there, and that's a big put.
Big pull. Great defense there from Otago, swatting out the air, making sure that neither two Wild Kittens players that were in the end zone can even think about scoring that point. As we can see it again on the replay. A great swat there.
Great defense by 52, Kazuki Estrel. And now Otago's back on their offense, and they've put it. That's a huge hug, and their player has great position there. And that was an excellent catch.
Crossing almost the entire field just to get that point. Incredible run there.
And you can see that celebration was going.
A well-deserved celebration based on how fast this player had to run.
And that was Callum Schumann doing that run down, and what a great position he had there.
That takes the score to 2-2, a close game today.
These teams appear to be pretty evenly matched, and it's nice to see both of them coming out with a bit of fire on the field.
We'll have to hope they can keep this energy up for the entire game. But with the amount of players on both teams' rosters, I think they will be able to maintain this pressure.
Both teams thinking a bit more about strategy, looking for that break. So what's been happening now is a lot of the time the team on offense has just been scoring the point without the defenses coming in and getting a D. So hopefully they're looking for a defensive point where they can start on defense and then score from there in order to get that 1 point up on the other team.
Getting 2 points in a row can turn around a match.
Otago's indicating for that pull, and that pull's about to go up. Looks like that pull, oh wow, it looked like it was going out, but it's floated very well.
Down.
That's great for their defensive positioning. They had lots of time to get to their players there. And their first big run's gone, but it's pretty well marked out by Otago there.
Some great short passes here from Wild Kittens.
They should be looking for that swing option there, which is that behind. And it's up.
Another deep pull. This could be another
that's a beautiful point.
Great catch there from Wild Kittens. 73, Sam McKerrett, the captain. Doing a great job of just making himself available for a catch in the end zone. Just finding space, short passes until you can find that long pass and someone available in the end zone. And there it is. Just slowly drifts to the captain. Great catch.
Beautiful catch. And that was the put from number 14, Reese Hearn, the Spirit captain, so getting that captain chemistry among the field.
Some very quick matches. Both teams definitely now probably discussing how they can both increase their defense. I wouldn't be surprised to see some more aggressive defenses, swats, and such on the field.
It'll be interesting to see if they change their style. So a lot of this game they've been playing what's called a match defense, which is where they're marking player to player. They could use sort of like a zone or a junk, which are different styles of defense where you mark more the space rather than the player. That could definitely change the way that the game is being played right now. But seeing how much big game both teams have, it's likely that they'll stick to match for a little while. And unfortunately, that's a turn from Otago. They needed a bit more height on that throw in order to get it to their player, but it looks like they threw it just a little bit low, and that wind really contributed in pushing it down.
This is that turnover that Wild Kittens wanted, though. Getting the disc back, and if they're able to score a second point in a row, that could be it for them. I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple short passes and then potentially a really deep pass, because they always seem to get players positioned in the end zone.
Wild Kittens making really good use of their swings, and that big pass is up
There it
with
is.
number 12 in excellent position for the disc.
Here.
Ooh.
Unfortunately.
And there's a foul call there. So a lot of players have jumped at once, so it's pretty tricky to see from that first initial play whether there's been some contact involved.
We can see on the replay, 3 players all jumping up for it. Potentially Wild Kittens were able to catch it.
So I can see where the foul call has come from. So when you're looking at vertical space, every player on the field owns their own vertical space. So if any player jumps on any diagonal and contacts the other player, it's a fair enough foul call. And it did look like from that replay that one of those Dunedin players jumped a little bit backwards, which makes it pretty difficult for the player from the Wild Kittens to jump up and own their vertical space. So I understand where the call is coming from there, and it will be interesting to see how it is resolved.
I wouldn't be surprised if this discussion does take a while, as it is a point that is being discussed.
Yes. Looks like there are several players involved in the discussion because there were several players in play, but most of the time you can see the fun acting out of the positions and figuring out where they were. It's quite difficult to take yourself away from these situations because oftentimes they happen very quickly and a lot of bumping around can happen, and it can be your own fault or the other team's fault. It's pretty difficult to differentiate between that.
In a no-contact sport, it is pretty difficult sometimes to decide whether a catch would have been made or not. It seems they've made a decision.
So it is a contested foul there, which means that it will go back to the thrower, and the thrower will get it from another opportunity to throw.
Unfortunately, the throw was quite deep, so it has taken the disc back to past halfway. Wild Kittens definitely wanting to get it back where it was.
I think they'll be looking to work it up a little bit more, seeing how many players were going for that deep shot and looking to defend that. So hopefully they'll take it up the middle now with a few more shorter passes. And that's an excellent swing there. You can see the chemistry between those two handlers.
Great movement there. Great catch from Wild Kittens. Just trying to find a player available for the pass. In the end zone.
That's a beautiful catch. Number 10 did that catch. That was a great catch.
Kelby. Great catch, great point, just catching it right on the corner of that end zone, walking it out, but that doesn't matter because as they were caught it in the end zone, it is fine.
And that would be your break there, so the Wild Kittens are now up by 2, which means that they've scored 2 points in a row, which is really going to benefit their game overall. For Otago now, they'd have to score 2 points in a row in order to get equal with Wild Kittens.
Getting multiple points in a row is quite difficult, especially when changing sides of the field after every point, as wind does change how you have to play.
Both teams don't look like they have a roster that's big enough to swap entire lines, which means that most players will have to play in both directions, which can affect sort of your throws and your catchings even. And it looks like Otago's ready on that line, and they're just waiting for Wild Kittens to get ready to go.
They've signaled they're ready, so the pull should commence soon.
And that is an excellent pull there. It's coming right down to the centre of that end zone. Can be quite a tricky spot to get from because you really, really don't want to turn it over in that end zone position. It gives the other team a big advantage. Now what you can see here is that a zone-style defence is being played on the Otago and Friends team right now. It looks like they're doing something called an arrowhead, where one person marks the disc and then 3 other players stand around the player closest to the disc, marking players that come into that space.
Just making it that little bit harder for the thrower to throw the frisbee within the 10 seconds that they do have to.
So this is a pretty good option within that arrowhead. The players should look to work sort of more in the middle, but I understand where that option came from.
Unfortunately, the pass has drifted out of bounds, so it will be taken from the line, and it is a turnover.
Looks like Dunedin is going for that classic setup of the match defence. Should be interesting to see if they can get a D. They have had Ds in the past with this style of defence.
And play resumes.
There's been a pick call. That just means that one of the players, you can see, has been intercepted by another player and hasn't been able to follow the person that they've been marking by the stack. So it just means that they haven't been able to follow, which means they haven't had an opportunity to mark the disc or mark the throw. It happened pretty early on in the stall count, so I'll imagine that the stall count will go down probably to 0. That player's just returning to where they were, and the other player is just about to catch up, run around that stack to get to the position where they can be available to make a bid on the disc.
It's just a case of accidental body blocking sometime. The play will resume. Those calls are important because having an unmarked player can change the entire game.
And that's an excellent leading pass that's happened there, down to Angus Horan.
One of those examples of passing to where the player's going to be and not where they already are.
And unfortunately just led to a turn, which happens, and there looks like Dunedin is setting up. It looks like Wild Kittens has scratched that zone that they were previously playing and have turned back into that match defense. And that...
Oh, drifting back
one of the
inbounds.
Players...
Oh, unfortunately not.
So what you noticed there was one of their players poached off a player, and Otago tried to capitalise on that. Unfortunately, the throw just didn't come off, which means that they've turned it over again,
and it is a turnover from where it was thrown, which is unfortunately quite close to the end zone.
So it's from actually where it went out. So because the throw went out and with the intention of it coming back in, it'll just go from where it went out.
My mistake.
That's all good. That swing option is a pretty smart option when you're outside the end zone. It's pretty easy to get end zone eyes, but that was an excellent point there. Oh.
Potential stoppage in play, just deciding whether the player was in or out of the end zone. Resuming play from the corner.
So a not-in call has happened, which means that it's not a point. They should be looking to swing it from here, and they have, and that was an excellent catch by 57.
Another great pass. Nice.
And they really just put that one corner in their focus zone and jammed it in that hole.
Great catch there from Tim Buckenberg. Just trying to make space, moving around, and great eye from the thrower as well. It's not always easy to spot who's available where. You just need to get it into the end zone to get that point. Wildcats now extending their lead. I apologize, Wild Kittens now extending their lead. Otago's going to have to apply a lot of pressure to catch back up.
It'll be interesting to see if Wild Kittens brings back out that zone that they just previously played. It seemed to work pretty effectively for them. You could see that Otago got a little bit stumped by it, which unfortunately does happen in these games of Frisbee. So I look forward to seeing if they're going to bring out that zone again or if they're going to bring something new.
Wild Kittens just capitalized on that turnover when it went out of bounds. Pull from Otago. I apologize, from Wild Kittens. Great pull. Slowly drifting, giving it
lots of time for that defense to run up, and it looks like they're setting that zone again. You can see that front of the arrowhead there, and the other people marking those handler resets that they're looking for. And that is a great way to capitalize right through it, right through the center of it, and it's up.
Deep pull here from Otago. Hopefully drifts back into the player.
Oh,
great catch, but were they in bounds?
It looks like it's been called in. And that's an excellent point. That was a great play by that receiver in order to catch that inside of the field.
Otago just finding those gaps, threading between the defenders, and then when they had a player in the end zone, just a deep pass that takes it all the way to the end is all they needed. Only one defender in front of
throw by Jack.
That can be the problem with the zoning defense, is that you've got so many players marking the throw that when it gets away from them, a deep pass can sometimes just get it to the players in the end zone who are unmarked.
And now Otago will be really looking to get the D on this one in order to sort of claw their way back up. So you'll see probably a lot of fire on this defence. It's the first time for a while that Otago's had the disc, so we might get to see a different defensive look. It'd be interesting to see if they could play something that's not just the match defence that they've been traditionally playing this game.
Maybe this is what Otago needs to bring their comeback back. They've brought it back to a distance of just 2 between the two teams. 2 points. Wellington Kittens on 5. Wild Kittens on 5. Otago on 3.
And that's a big pull, and again, that's really nice of floaty, giving time for that team to run up. And they're sticking with that match defense. they're looking to see, they're finding quite a lot of space right in the middle of the field there. It'll be interesting to see if they still keep doing it there, or that is an excellent grab.
Diving catch from number 27 on Wild Kittens. Austin Clark, again, we've seen some amazing plays from him today, and that's just another great point secured by Wild Kittens, keeping that 3-point lead.
The most impressive part of that catch was that he did a very excellent dive, and it was quite clean. If you watch the other player, they almost didn't get contacted at all, which is very impressive when you're diving for a frisbee like that.
Great job there.
He lifted his feet up even to avoid tripping that player over, which is very impressive when you're so focused on the disc in that moment.
If you can avoid contact, you definitely want to try that, because fouls can be the difference between whether a point goes through or not. Wild Kittens with their 3-point lead with the pool, discussing more and more tactics.
And it'll be interesting to see what Otago brings down here. The pool's about to go up, and it's up. And it's less floaty than before, which means that Otago should have a little bit more time to work it up, but it looks like the roll has lost them that advantage a little bit.
Great angle, though, bringing it towards the centre.
There was a pick called again. Another example of where the stack has just stopped someone from following their player. It doesn't look like it affected the throw, so it looks like the disc will stay with the player. And play will continue in a couple of moments while everyone gets their head in the game.
Wild Kittens will just need to touch the frisbee, and we're on.
And that's a big up, but unfortunately not very high.
The first SWAT defense I think we've seen so far in this game. Wild Kittens captain Sam McCarrett doing a great job of making sure it doesn't get past him.
And Angus Horan with the disc here. He's a relatively young player, but
very deep pass. This will be a great point if it can be made. Oh, the great defense there. A second SWAT. We're seeing some very aggressive defense that we predicted would come out later in the match, as both teams are not wanting their scoreboards to go any higher.
And Otago's coming up with the disc.
We've got a replay here. A great SWAT there, just not letting number 12 catch that disc. And play resumes.
And there's a big cut going right away, but it doesn't look like that big shot's happening. So we'll look for that sort of swing option. And unfortunately, just in front of their player.
A lot of pressure now will be coming from Wild Kittens. This is the turnover they may have needed to extend that lead they already have. An unfortunate turnover.
You can see that vertical stack play happening there. And a hammer, but not quite enough float on that, unfortunately.
Just came to the ground and just immediately became a turnover. I wouldn't be surprised to see Otago just try get this disc out of here with a long pull. But they're doing these short passes, and there it is.
There it is.
Long pull. Hopefully
up
it can
to
be
Jack
caught.
Payne.
Great
and that's
catch
a great
there.
catch, but not in the end zone, so a bit of time there.
So he's got to wait for his players to catch up with him and get to the end zone so he can make that point. Wild Kittens applying a lot of pressure.
And that's a great shot there, looking at that front corner.
Otago making that
Harrison
even
Free
shorter.
passed it to 52.
Kazuki Isto doing a great job at just constantly attacking, bringing the score to 6-4. Otago's not out of this yet.
Otago's a team that can do quite a lot of upsets though, so it will be interesting to see how they play the later of the game. Last year, as a mixed team, they came out and knocked Credo out of the running for Div 1 championships, which is a pretty big deal on their hands. And they're a pretty new team, which is nice. They didn't have a team competing in the Opens last year, so it's interesting seeing different plays coming out as a whole.
Probably expect to see more of them in the tournament to come.
Yes, hopefully.
Just waiting on the pull. Neither team signaling yet they're ready. Potentially more team discussions regarding tactics. Wild Kittens signals that they're ready.
And Dunedin is ready too.
We've seen some great pulls today. A lot of them just slowly floating down, giving Otago a lot of time to set up their defense.
And that's a great catch by that handler there. And they're looking to work it slowly this time, Wild Kittens are. They don't look like they're looking for that big huck. Looks like a lot of small handler movement.
But here it is. If we find an unmarked player, it may be a deep throw. But passing just between the handlers at the moment.
They don't look like they need to do the huck right now. They are getting some free options, but they've done it nonetheless.
And there it
a
is.
Great catch.
And it works well.
63, Angus Horan caught that one.
Great jump catch from that player.
He had pretty good positioning considering the players around him. So what you'll see in this replay is that there are players on either side of him, but he ran a straight line through the middle, which meant that he had the space there to catch that throw.
Great throw from Austin Clark there. Great assist. Just spotting that player and realizing with a nice pass that just floats down to him, the point could be secured. Watkins extending their lead once again.
And it looks like a timeout has been called. A timeout has been called, so the teams will be having a little discussion about how they can play better. I'm not sure which team called the timeout, unfortunately, but what will happen oftentimes if a team is a little bit down, they're oftentimes the team that calls the timeout to have a discussion about how they can improve their play as a whole. And it's really important to have these sort of team chats about things because there's a way that you can change your play, but it's pretty difficult to change your play without your whole team having that discussion. So I imagine that Otago and friends will be having a think about how they can play their defense to produce a few more turns for their advantage.
With a score of 7-4, we can probably expect halftime pretty soon, with Wildkins just needing one more point. Both teams, this is a very close game despite the 3-point difference. I still would say it's anyone's game. A little bit of fun from Otago, just preparing themselves for what's to come. Wildcats are also ready. Also, sometimes with the timeout, with a smaller roster, it's just great to give the players a 45-second break.
In a game of Frisbee, you can only take, there are 3 timeouts you can take in each game, and you can only take a maximum of 2 in each half. So what Dunedin and Friends has done strategically here is taken one before half so that they can take all 3 during the game. It's a pretty smart move when you have a smaller roster to take all of your timeouts so you have the maximum amount of time to sort of revitalise and get ready to play the sport.
Makes sense. Play will resume. We're now 20 minutes into the game. Quite a high-scoring game with 7-4 already in the first half an hour.
And Wild Curtains pulling to Otago. And there's a nice pull. That's looking like it's going pretty far.
We've seen a lot of great pulls today in this game. A lot of distance, a lot of accuracy, a lot of ones that just float down as well.
And you can see that zone's coming up there again for Wild Kittens. And
great recovery there from Otago. Just missing the catch, but being able to get off of the rebound.
And Otago should be looking to get it around, out of that little front line, because all of the players are sort of
deep pass from Otago straight to the end zone.
And beautifully caught.
We're seeing a lot of deep passes straight to the end zone this game. Otago once again closing that gap between the two teams.
What you'll get to see, is that when players catch the disc moving forward and unmarked, they often take that opportunity to make that big option because they have the space to put a big shot in front of them and all of the space to pivot around for that space.
Otago will be quite happy with that play.
And Otago will be hoping to come up on that, get that D on this point now, because that will extend the time until the half time. So we'll be looking at quite a fiery defense, I imagine.
Wild Kittens only need one more point to half time, so they will be applying a lot of pressure. The pull from Otago.
And both teams are ready for it.
potentially another one that just slowly floats down, giving Otago a lot of time to set up that defense. They're going to want to turnovers to get a couple more points before half-time. Oh, number 73 setting himself up very deep.
And you can see number 12 streaking deep. He is pretty favoured in the deep overall. You can see that that's the position that he likes.
Watkins have done a great job of getting a lot of players in the end zone. And there it is, the point that signals half-time. A great final point from Watkins, I believe, number 27. I apologize.
Austin Clark.
Austin Clark getting that point, but that does signal half-time. So as we can see on the replay, just a great little pass here, and then just trying to find where they can throw it into the end zone, and just noticing just like right in front of you sometimes just works, and there it is. Beautiful point, signaling half-time. We will now have a 5-minute break, but we will be back very soon. My name is Will Drzanek.
And I'm Caitlin Wood.
And we'll see you in 5. Welcome back to the second half of the game between Wild Kittens and Otago. It is currently 8 to Wild Kittens and 5 to Otago. My name is Will Druzianic.
And I'm Caitlin Wood.
And the play will be resuming shortly. We saw quite the intense half, both teams applying a lot of pressure, and we'll have to see now whether they carry that on throughout the game.
A cool thing from that first half is that both teams have been playing with a lot of big games. There's been a lot of big puts and a lot of great catches by both teams. It'll be interesting to see if they continue with that strategy. It looks like it's going pretty well for both teams overall.
A lot of points scored by deep passes as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a couple more of those. It seems a lot of players just position themselves in the end zone, and it's not rare to see a couple deep passes, almost like the pulls from the start that just sail across the entire field.
And there'll be a little delay before we start as the teams get ready with their strategies and they split the sideline. What you'll see often is that teams have players on both sides of the field in order to talk to the players that are on the field, which is especially important as you come up on defense, as players can communicate where the disc is and that sort of thing to the players on the field.
Coming off the field in Ultimate Frisbee is a physical break, but not necessarily a mental one when you support your team in every way that you can. Wild Kittens signal that they are ready with the pull.
And it's up.
Great pull there, rolling forwards. Definitely in Otago's favour.
And you can see that their zone play has started again, just as they played in the second half of that first half.
Great jumping catch there. Would have been a shame if that was a turnover so close to the end zone, but number one on Otago isn't letting that happen.
And once they've broken through that zone, they've got a lot of space there, and the players are really using it. But as you can see here, there's a lot of pressure on the disc as soon as that zone sets up. There's a lot of difficulty with those small throws among that front space. As soon as they break through it, you can see a lot more movement.
Otago just trying to find that space. They've got two players. Elliot Wilson with the disc, potentially thinking about a deep pass, but no, the short passes are doing them a good job of just slowly making their way up the field.
There isn't very much pressure on that swing, which is that horizontal movement in between those three handlers, and it looks like it's worked for them.
Unfortunately, the jump just couldn't take the player across.
And there's been a timeout called, potentially an injury. It looks a little bit in pain, but that timeout call is an absolute veteran call on the end of that end zone line.
It looks like the player jumped to catch the Frisbee and hoping to make it all the way across the line. Jumped as far as they could, but may have got a bit of ground shock potentially in the legs when they hit the ground.
The timeout call here is an absolute veteran's move. What players like to do oftentimes when they're attacking an end zone and they call a timeout right before the end zone is it allows the rest of their players to set up traditionally a trained end zone play. So you'll pretty likely be seeing the players set up in a vertical stack with specific cutters looking to get that disc in the end zone. Because it's quite near that front corner cone, I would not be surprised if their first movement was to swing it into more of a central position within the field, because that gives them more lanes to shoot at in order to score that point. But they'll definitely be talking about setting that up right now within their circles.
Otago definitely wanting this point to shorten that lead that Wellington Kittens have. Wellington Kittens will be trying their best for a turnover. We'll see what pressure they apply as the play resumes.
And what will happen here coming in from a timeout is that the offensive team will set up in the positions that they want to be in, and then the defensive team will set up after the offensive team has set. So the offense can set wherever they want on the field, and it looks like they're positioning in a little bit of a side stack with 4 of their players completely out of that open lane of the field.
Fortunately, we can't see it, but it's just behind the players. We may pan across them soon. I wouldn't be surprised if you'll see them as we potentially have a deep pass over to those players.
And what you can see here is it looks like you've got that one major threat who's already in the end zone, just directly in front of the player with the disc.
Otago just wanting a short pass into the end zone, and right on the line.
Looks like that defense has set up there, and there's very little movement, so they're about to get that disc active there.
And we're live once the Wild Kittens touch the disc, and we're on. Couple fakes, great short pass, making a bit more space and giving themselves a couple more options to send it into the end zone. And great block there.
Oh, there's a foul call on that one. So what it looks like is that the player may have come from behind the other player and there was some contact involved in that call.
We'll see a replay here. Just a dive to try block it. Yes, unfortunately an arm on the back of Otago there, potentially stopping the catch, but we'll have to let them decide.
The hardest thing with dives and layouts in that sort of situation is that even if you're making a layout to get the disc, it has to be clean. If you're touching the player at all, that can completely ruin your layout, even if you catch the disc, unfortunately. Just as it stops the other player from having the opportunity to make that play on the disc, and as this is a non-contact sport, you shouldn't be contacting the player at all. What you'll notice with teams, though, is oftentimes as they play the game, they sort of get to know the level of contact that the other team is okay with. And that can increase a little bit of contact on the field, but knowing that it's a non-contact sport, there should be avoidance of contact as much as possible.
Some players like their entire play of the game just uninterrupted with no contact so they can really focus. So it is fair to call a foul when that is interrupted in any way.
And the discussion about this will be a little bit tricky because both players won't have the perspective that we have. They've been in the play. It's quite difficult to know exactly what happened. It looks like they've been talking to the other players on the field. So once you make a call, you can ask for perspective from other players on the field to see if they have like a better view of what happened. And it looks like they've asked for that from the players. And there'll be a bit more discussion before the call is resolved. So it's a contested foul there, which means that the disc goes back to the thrower.
Everyone returns back to their positions. Otago still keeping their opportunity to score this point.
So with that contested foul there, Otago, they all have to go back to the position where they were when the disc was thrown. And that's a beautiful swing there, and that's what I'm talking about earlier with opening up those channels. And unfortunately, just a turn there.
Just enough players making just enough space.
Sorry.
For the point swerve. No, it's a great point there. We'll see it on the replay. It looked a bit risky, but no, it was a great catch there. Otago bringing their score up to 6, making it a much closer game. The moment that Watkins touched that, just a great pass, finding space, player runs through, he's available for the catch.
And that was a great catch.
74 from Otago. Jack Payne, great catch, great play there. Otago will be celebrating that on the return.
And now they will be coming down in defence, and it's really important that Otago score that point. Just because they're a little bit down, if they score this point, that'll bring them 1 point closer to catching up to Wild Kittens' lead.
2 points is a lot easier to get than another 3. 40 minutes left on the clock. Bit more of team discussion. Otago probably discussing what worked there and what they need to continue doing to get these 2 points to catch them back up to Wild Kittens. They signal they're ready. And here's the pull. Looks like it's going to flow down. Seems like a classic technique of Otago. Gives them plenty of time to set up.
And you'll probably watch a little bit of handler movement trying to get that disc out from right by that end zone. But looks like it's immediately up. And that is a great cut that's happened for there.
Great catch. It just brings Wild Kittens right onto the side of the field that they want to be in. These short passes, it took.
And that's a beautiful catch there by Sam Masters.
Great play. What happened there is Otago was so far up defending that one deep pass left a lot of players unmarked for Wild Kittens to execute. And just a couple long and short passes just takes it straight into the zone. As we'll see on the replay, just spotting who's available as all the defenders run back. They've all got to figure out who they're going to mark, who they're going to set up. And by that time, the players are already making their way there. A great catch there. Great play. Wild Kittens keeping that lead of 3 points as the game continues on. Otago probably going to be coming in with a much stronger defense this time.
And what we can see here with the play is that the Wild Kittens are favouring that sideline that they're playing up on, and that tends to be because the wind is pushing them a little bit that way, which means most of their throws flow into that little corner. It'll be interesting to see if they continue to force it up that sideline or if they open up the space a little bit more on the field.
Interesting pull here from Wild Kittens, very close to the sidelines.
And it looks like that's a brick call, so the pull has landed out, which means that they get to take it in from the centre point, 1/3 up the field. Can be a bit of an advantage because you get a little bit extra space, but also gives Wild Kittens a bit of time to set up their defensive plays.
I believe you can either take it from the brick marker or where it went out, is that correct?
That is correct. If the player indicates with their hand up, they've indicated that it is a brick, and that means that they'll be taking it from the centre.
Otago playing the centre because of the brick, doing a great job of getting a lot of short passes and making their way up the field. Great pass there, covering a lot of distance. A couple short passes.
And that's a beautiful, beautiful play there.
From 99, great catch there.
Ben Webber.
Brilliant job there from Otago, just doing those passes. Some of the best passes are the ones that just work their way up the sideline and just drift from outside of the line, just back in, straight to a player.
It was a great use of the open player there and a great cut there by Ben Webber.
Players have to stay inbounds, but the Frisbee does not, and that's the great thing about a Frisbee is it can bend itself in the air.
And as we said earlier, with the wind pushing in that direction, anytime you throw the Frisbee out on this side of the field, it generally will be pushed back in by the wind no matter what you're doing. So you'll see if they get it to that sideline up there, they will often favour that throw that goes out and then back in because they have a lot more space for their players to run in.
Otago shortening that. We've seen a lot of points being scored in this game in a short amount of time. I mean, Otago are still only 2 points behind.
What you can see is what we call a hold in Frisbee. So that's when Otago is scoring when they're on offense, but a break would be considered when Otago score on defense. So what we really need to see from Otago for them to be up in the game is 2 breaks. So 2 times where they score when they are on defense. And that can be really, really tricky because offensive play is a little bit favoured. It's a bit easier to score on offence than it is to score on defence. And so they should be putting a really fiery defensive lines down on these Wild Kittens.
Wild Kittens' lead did come from their break. Great dive catch there. You don't want to turn over that close to your end zone, so those dives.
And you can see here that Otago is trying their own zone, which is very exciting. It looks like it's a bit more of a junky zone, which means that you often have players marking the handler space as well as players marking the deeper space.
Another deep pass that covers the entire field. This is classic. Oh, good defense though from Otago. They're just making sure that none of the Wild Kittens players could get under that and letting it just fall to the ground.
And I think that was by 44, but I can't quite see the number.
We can see it on the replay. Yes, number 44.
Harrison Free there with that great defense. And you can see that Wild Kittens is just taking that traditional match defense. And this is Otago's opportunity here. If they don't turn it, they do have that break. That break will happen. So
a lot of plays from Wild Kittens have been these long, deep passes that just go straight to a player in the end zone. And we're seeing one here from Otago.
So number 44, Harrison Free through that one.
Caught by number 23, Will Rodriguez. Rodriguez doing a great job.
And they're taking a little bit of extra time outside their end zone to throw the disc around and get some more hands on it. It's a pretty smart play because often the adrenaline of throwing to the end zone gets to the players. So they're being really safe here.
Player-on-player marking in the end zone here, making sure that no one is available to catch that disc.
And
great job there.
That went from Jack Payne to Will Rodriguez.
Great job there. He passed it back to a player behind him who might have a better opportunity and ran himself forward over the end zone, as we'll see it on the replay. Just a pass, and then making himself the unmarked player in the end zone that can be passed to. Just running around, curving around the edge, getting that point.
And that was a great example of patient play by Otago.
And that's one of those breaks that we just saw as well. We were just talking about that, and Otago has been closing that gap. It is now 9-8. Only 1 point separates the two teams. This is going to be a very close match.
Hopefully we'll get to see a bit more of that patient play by Otago. So when they use more of their players, it seems that it's working more to their advantage because the Wild Kittens has seen that oftentimes they're going to send that bigger option. And they did have that bigger option for that first shot, but after that big option, it was really good to see that patience of working it through each player.
That entire play, there were only like, I believe, 1 or 2 long passes, and it was just a lot of great short passes between players moving around and making space that got them that point.
So it will be interesting now because Wild Kittens will be coming out. All Otago needs is one more break and then it's evens, and we will see how it goes.
It's been a while since the breaks. The pull will be coming from the opposite side of the field. Will it be one of the classic ones that just float down and give them a lot of time to set up defense? And it is just a slow going down, gives Otago a lot of time to set up.
And Otago is setting up in a zone here. You can see it by them not marking the players individually. They're marking spaces. It looks like a bit of a 2-3-2, so 2 players on the disc. Oh, I'm very wrong. It's an arrowhead, so they've got 2 players marking those handlers, and then the 3 players behind them slowly sort of working at the players working in the mid, and 2 players marking that deeper space.
This kind of defense forces the handlers to pass between them quite a bit because it's quite hard to get past those players. But when they do, number 73 has made himself readily available quite far down. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a very deep pass to him at some point.
And what you're seeing here is some great handler movement. They're really threading it through those people marking right in front of the handler space. And all they need to find is that one more open player to get that big downfield movement. But there's a lot of space for those swings to happen, so those swings are very open for those passes.
Handler's doing a good job, though, of just working their way up the field.
And this is an example of that great patience that Dunedin showed previously. So many catches, so many throws, and they're all coming off cleanly between the players. This isn't rushed at all. There's lots of time to do this.
I was definitely mistaken, assuming they would do a deep pass to number 73. It looks like they're making more and more short passes just to make the pass to the end zone that much more secure.
And they're making their way up the field pretty well.
Oh,
and that was a great bid there.
It's a very committed dive.
By number 23.
Number 23, Will Rodriguez.
And they've worked their way the whole way up the field, very close to the end zone now. And let's see if they can just work it into that end. Again, they're stuck on that sideline a little bit, but that throw there just opens the field up a lot.
Moving across, Otago had a lot of players on that side of the field, so they managed to get it forward quite a bit. Wild Kittens does have a player unmarked in the end zone. Will it be spotted? The player's now been marked.
And that's
very risky. It was a very low pass. I don't know if that one was able to be seen.
So there's a lot of people calling it down. The hard thing with Frisbee is in an up-down call. If even one blade of grass touches it as the throw happens, it's a down Frisbee. So you can see a lot of players pointing down, which is the hand signal. We can see here, it
just looks too close to the ground to tell. A little bit of debate. Just one of those low passes that work so well at getting past the defenders. But if it touches the ground, it will be a turnover. Wild Kittens did a great job of working it all the way up the field. I'm sure they will not be happy if this is a turnover.
So they're just having a discussion about that, because what will often happen is your hand can be below the disc, and if you think that you have control before it touches the ground, then that is okay, and that is an up Frisbee. But obviously it's quite difficult to tell whether it's touched the ground before the Frisbee has come to you. So they'll be having a little discussion about it. I mean, what you can see is other people's hand signals.
Yep, we'll see another replay of it just here. It's very, very hard to tell.
And someone has done the cricket hand signal for the replay. Yeah. So unfortunately, it's a little bit difficult to communicate with the players on the field from where we are. But if we could probably not even give them that much insight.
We would tell them that we are equally confused as to what this call could possibly be.
So it looks like it's a contested down, so it's gone back to the player who threw it.
Which is good. Wild Kittens still able to apply a lot of pressure, and they're sticking with the technique of just passing it back and forth between the players towards the back, taking it back up the field a little bit just to give them a couple more options. Doing a great job of making their way towards the end zone, though.
A very good use of their open player, and that was a great
defense
by Jack Payne there, who was doing a lot of work on that handler mark.
Just swatting it down and making sure that his team can now capitalize on this. It was a lot of pressure on the end zone. If they can possibly get another point, they will tie up the game.
And there's a lot of movement coming up
Deep
that
player,
one side.
deep pass. Number 1 has made himself completely available, but he will have to make this jump and catch, and he does it. Brilliant point there from Otago. Elliot Wilson, a fantastic catch, just floats down. He's able to catch it, and with the defender right behind him, those catches aren't easy.
And that is a break, which brings us to evens on the field.
We will just watch a replay of this. There it is, noticing the player, seeing that Elliot's available, throwing it, letting it drop down. Great catch here.
And that was an excellent bid by number 12, Simon Kazuya. He definitely was super close to getting that clean D on that.
Elliot touched it just before and was able to move it out of the way. A great point, which ties up the game. A very close game. With Wild Kittens ahead almost the entire game, it'll be interesting to see if Otago can pull ahead for probably, I think, the first time this match.
So unfortunately for Otago, they will be starting on defense just because of the nature of scoring a point. So they do have a little bit of a disadvantage at the moment, despite the game itself being on evens. In order to win the game, they will have to score another break, whereas Wellington has the advantage of if they continue to score each point that they're on offense, they will win the game. So we're really looking for Dunedin to have a big fight here in order to score another one of those breaks, which they've just shown that they can score.
We're an hour into the game, but this is where we see a lot of people put in all their energy. And classic Otago, just a nice one that floats down, drifts outwards. It will most likely be taken from the brick marker, I believe. Oh, no?
So the player will get to indicate it, but it looks like right now they're taking it from the sideline. I haven't seen a brick signal, and it looks like it's been bricked by the team, which means they'll bring it in from that central point. There's quite a bit of advantage to having it at the centre because you can have a lot more options of where on the field you can throw the frisbee.
Oh, unfortunately just slipped through Wild Kitten's hands there. Oh no, I apologise. It's swatted down by Wild Kittens. Great defence there.
And now we've got Otago with the disc here. And a great swing there, looking for that horizontal movement a bit, and it's up.
Very deep pass, 2 unmarked players in the end zone. Unfortunately, just not able to be caught. It was slightly touched, which unfortunately made it harder for the second player to catch it. We'll see it on the replay. Just here, it's a great pass, drifts just out of bounds, that wind taking it right back into the 2 players who were unmarked, but unfortunately just not able to grab it. And if that was caught by that player, it would have been out anyway.
Unfortunately, very difficult to see the players behind you looking for those same throws that you are, and it's important that they are caught. And they're still doing that zoney play here with a 2-3-2 that has sort of 2 players in that handler space, 3 players in the middle, and 2 looking for those deeper shots.
Considering Otago really wants this break here, I will not be surprised if they go very aggressive with the defense, but it looks like Wild Kittens are just going to make their way up. Classic Wild Kitten style. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a very deep pass to a deep player.
Traditionally, this style of defense actually stops those sort of passes with those 2 players looking for those bigger options.
Very true.
So we should, hopefully, in their best play, they should be playing using all of their handlers, moving it slowly up the field. And there's a lot of pressure on those throws right now. And once they find a hole, they do really just move it down the field.
Great marking and great defense from Otago, not giving Wild Kittens any opportunities to make a great deal of distance up the field. But the handlers are doing a good job of just slowly working their way up.
And that's a scuba fake there, which was quite fun. Would be nice to see some more upside down discs on the field, but they're playing it safe with those safer options through the middle. And that's an excellent shot right through the middle there. And a great
defense. You can see Otago immediately celebrating. I mean, they want and need this break.
It looks like Tim Adler there got his foot on that disc. Let's have a look at it on this replay.
Was it the foot? If so,
excellent. That's a foot
out
block.
Of the air.
It was beautiful to watch. And Otago's here now working on that offense, just really trying to get it into that end zone. There's a stoppage there. There's a stoppage there. It looks like a foul has happened. An uncontested foul has happened on the field.
25 minutes on the clock. Both teams just wanting that 1 point. I believe at every turnover we will see a lot of celebrating. I mean, they're on offense at the moment. They're doing a great job of applying a lot of pressure. Otago, that is.
Looks like there was a bit of a foul on the cut, which means that the disc has gone back to the previous hand, the person who previously had the disc, and they'll just tap it in to make it active again.
Tap it in.
And that same throw is going up with that player having a lot of open space.
Just a great repeat. Great job from Otago, just finding those gaps in players and making passes between the players that are doing a great deal of distance forwards. Great job at
and that's an excellent catch in the end zone.
Wow, a brilliant
great
diving catch. Number 8 there. I might be mistaken with that number.
We'll see it on the replay soon, and I'm sure that will show us what we need. But that was an excellent break.
A dive. I honestly didn't know whether they were in the end zone or not, but they clearly were, and it was just a great job. Otago did a great job at just identifying those players and who was available. A great dive there. No, number 6, so I was corrected, it was Joshua Wong. A great job from them, scoring a fantastic point and the break that Otago needed.
And that there will be another timeout for the teams. What Otago has just done is they have put themselves in the running to win the game. They have that break will mean that they have the opportunity to just keep scoring every point that they have on offense, and it will be doing great.
It is huge for them. We can see them celebrating in their team meeting or on their timeout. This is the first time they've been in the lead the entire game, and there's not much time left on the clock. I will see. My guess is that we'll see a very, very strong defense from Otago from this point forward, because scoring points will be great, but as long as they can stop Wildcats from scoring another one, they will take this game.
Yes, and it will be interesting because I'm pretty sure that Wildkittens called that timeout, which is a fair call for them, and they will be thinking very hard about how to stop that offensive looks that Otago is having once they turn the disc.
We may see some very aggressive plays from Wildkittens. I want to predict potentially some really long, deep passes, as they have scored a couple points off of those, but the technique they've been using in the last couple of plays, just passing between the handlers towards the back, has been working for them quite well. They just haven't been able to get it into the end zone.
And it should be interesting as Wildkittens coach has come over to give them a team talk. So that will be Riley Van Turner, and the white hat is giving them that team talk that could be the difference between the strategy that they previously had and the strategy that they'll have now. It'll be very interesting to see if they change up any of their looks.
It is make or break for Wildkittens.
And Otago's bringing a lot of energy to their chair and already getting out there on the line.
Play will resume shortly. Otago will have the pull,
which means they'll be coming out on defense again. However, they have just scored several points from their defensive line, so I expect that they will have a lot of fire behind them. And obviously with the Wildkittens being down now, the intensity should be brought up a notch with that fight back.
I would not be surprised to see Otago once again executing one of their pulls that just slowly floats down and gives them a lot of time to set up a strong defense. But of course, Otago, there's no harm in going for another break here, because a 2-point lead is even better than a 1-point lead.
And the pull, the indication is ready, and it's about to go up.
And we're on.
Bit less of a floaty pull there, but gives the Wildkittens a little bit more time to work it up the field.
Wildkittens most likely taking this opportunity. Oh, a little toss as opposed to a throw. Using gravity to help the frisbee get to the player.
And you can see that Otago's using that same defensive strategy that's worked so effectively in the last few points with that 2-3-2 setup. They're stopping those big hucks, but also putting pressure on the throwers a lot. And they're really clogging those middle lanes.
Wildkittens are having to do a lot of short passes, but there's a lot of space available now.
As soon as they break through that, which you can see happen every so often, they have a lot of space and a lot of time to make their options and choose the right choices.
That's the pros and cons to the zoning. It puts so much pressure on the players, but if it gets away from the ones that you're marking, it's very hard to get it under control again. But Wildkittens doing a great job of just working their way up the field.
And they're just very slowly working it up. Great patience here. And you can see each player being used.
Player deep in the end zone. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw someone try to pass it around the outside. The wind bring it back in.
It's quite difficult to make those throws with the pressure that the Otago team is putting on the disc right now. There's a lot of hands around each throw. They look like they're just looking to work it in safely and find that option where the player has a lot of space.
Wild Kittens still just passing between the handlers. They've made their way up almost the entire field.
It's a great example of patient play there, with them just looking for the player that is left open by the zone.
It's fair. They don't need a lot of points. They only need one to really put them back into this game. And that's all you need, but there it is.
There it is, a great scuba by Sam Masters over the top. An interesting throw with the disc being upside down, giving it a slightly different curl shape than what a traditional upwards disc throw is.
The first one I've seen of the tournament. A great, very well executed, and that's tied back up the game. We'll just look at the replay now. Is it? Does he throw it? He does.
There's your scuba.
Wow, brilliant.
So you can see there that Wellington has a strong influence of the indoors in Wellington, as oftentimes in winter they play mostly indoors, with the weather getting a bit too bad to play outside. So you'll see a lot of throws like that in an indoors game, as the wind doesn't affect them as much. And I think it also shows that the wind's died down a little bit, because when you throw an upside down disc, the shape of the disc gets affected by the wind more, which means that it can be pushed down faster and makes it more difficult to catch.
High risk, high reward, but great execution there from
Sam Masters.
A great job. But that ties up the game. It means both teams now looking for that point to get ahead.
And Otago has the slight advantage coming down on the offense now, hopefully looking for that hold so that they can keep that lead that they've worked so hard for.
Great pull from Wild Kittens, just sitting it in the back corner of the field. And
Otago using their handlers to make space up the field. And you see that the Wild Kittens have seen their strategy and taken it. They're doing a similar 2-3-2 zone there. And
unfortunate turnover there. I imagine the play will be resuming quite quickly for Wild Kittens, probably seizing this opportunity. No, they are taking their time to set up, which is fair. They had a lot of players on defense. Oh, unfortunate turnover there.
That looked like a hard fall for that player, unfortunately. Otago looking to move it fast before they set up their zone. And that's an excellent break through that zone.
Wild Kittens coming with a lot of speed, trying to make this defense. They're doing a great job of knowing where the frisbee's going to be, but they're just too late.
And what you can see here is Otago is doing a lot of swinging the disc, which is just tiring out that defensive zone as they constantly have to move to be around the disc.
This is how much the game does change, as we've seen.
So we've just had a call there. One of the players has called a down call and another player's called an up call, and it's just been retracted. The down call's been retracted, so that disc is up.
We're having a replay. I do believe the player just managed to grab into his hand before play resumed. Yes, a bit of control, a bit of confusion, but play resumes. The defense, the people who are zoning in defense will be quite tight after this game for both teams, as the handlers are getting a lot of action with the disc, and they're making their way up the sideline.
And you can see that's the advantage to throwing around with the handlers, is that you really tire out the front sections of that zone.
Very different to the gameplay we saw at the start, which was just a lot of points being scored in a short amount of time. Big offense, not huge defense, but now both teams doing a great job at both aspects of the game. Great catch there from, I believe, Elliot Wilson, just floating just a little bit higher than they expected.
And a great read there by that player.
Intercept from Wild Kittens. A catch, meaning that they still only had 10 seconds to make the throw, which immediately continues the play.
And you can see that Wild Kittens is looking for that bigger option, but they've slowed it down now to take that smaller play.
With 15 minutes left on the clock, both teams are wanting to pull ahead by that point.
And it's up, and there's a very clear...
Great defense there.
Number 12 was very, very open, but luckily, I think 52, Kazuki Estrel came in and just got that clean D right before it came back into the field.
I think it's safe to say that it would have been a point if not for the strong defense from Otago.
One of the cool things about when you're marking on defense is that you're allowed to run in and out of the field however you want in order to get the D, and you can see an example of that there. He ran a little bit out of the field to stop that frisbee from coming back inside the field.
Great catch there from number 99. Using a bit of vertical height to pluck it out of the air.
And a bit of a risky swing, but luckily the player's reading the disc very well.
Hammer throw, unfortunately, didn't work out for Otago with the turnover. Wild Kittens definitely, once again, another opportunity there with the turnover on the side of the field that they want.
And an excellent layout, but unfortunately the disc had hit the ground when it happened.
They found
and
a gap.
Matt
Oh,
puts
very
it up.
long distance. Oh my, that is a
wonderful grab by 27 there.
A lot of turnovers. Position between the disc is changing a lot.
I think you can see the fatigue in the play here. Both teams are quite tired and not necessarily making the better decisions that they were making earlier in the game. And this often happens later in games, as with players with small rosters like this. They run a lot and they can get very tired by the end of the game.
We're seeing a great deal of defense though. It looks like a lot of players passing are just taking any gap they can. But it's getting quite difficult for either team to make a lot of leeway on the field. We haven't seen really too much gameplay at either end zone. Quite centered.
There's a lot of pressure around the handlers on with both teams' offense, and they're just looking for that gap in the middle for them to take that shot.
Unfortunately, just fell out of Elliot Wilson's hands.
Quite a difficult catch for him over his shoulder, but an excellent bid nonetheless.
Sometimes the disc just can't be caught. It's not the problem with the thrower. That would have been very difficult for Elliot Wilson to time with a jump.
And you can see them setting up this tight defense. They're really digging in for this point. And there's been a timeout call by Wild Kittens.
I believe their final timeout they're allowed to call in the game.
And that's an excellent timeout call looking at that point there. You could see both teams were getting quite fatigued overall. They were taking a lot of options that weren't necessarily the right options right away.
Both teams pretty grateful for this timeout. I imagine, as we saw in a lot of the plays, it was a lot of handling passes, not many turnovers. But towards this end section of the game, there's been a lot of turnovers because both teams are just wanting to score that point that they need.
Yeah, both teams have been looking for quite big options, which is oftentimes getting blocked by the other team, as the other team has learnt to expect those options from each team. You can see that they really respect each other's deep play, which means that there's often players in the end zone blocking those bigger shots up. And again, this will be a really interesting discussion specifically for the Otago team. They are coming back out on defense and they'll be really wanting to get that defense so that they can score that point and keep the lead a little bit. Obviously, the game itself is equal, but with the Wild Kittens having the disc, it means that they do have a little bit of a strategic advantage right now for that score.
We will see quite the celebration the next time a point is scored, because that could be the point that ends the game. Otago doing a great job at the beginning when Wild Kittens was 3 points ahead to make that ground back. The players do have hot streaks.
It'll be interesting to see if Otago brings out that same defense that they were previously playing, which is that match defense, as hopefully they have been showing other styles that have had a bit more effectiveness for them.
The last two games I've seen a lot of, the last two games that I commentated were both person-on-person marking. So it's great to see a game of zoning, as it is quite interesting how different it is. With player-on-player marking, there's a lot of long passes and just trying to make yourself available and get rid of the person marking you. But here, it's finding the gaps, making your way through the defenders and slowly making you up the field to try to secure those points.
Traditionally, with player-on-player marking, it's better if you know that your players are better, but if your players aren't overall across the board better. Having a zone play works a bit more to your advantage because you can put your players in key positions. So if you have a player that you know is really good with vertical play, you often put them in the deep space. But you can see here that they've set up a traditional match defense. And they've really...
Unfortunate drop there from Wildcats. It will be a turnover.
And Otago's just taking their time with moving that disc up the field. There's a lot of space, and you can see that the players are a little bit fatigued, and so they're taking their time with taking the right option.
Elliot Wilson doing a great job of just holding onto that disc until he has a safe pass that he can do.
And there's a great amount of space, but there has been a pick called, unfortunately. That stack there has stopped that player who was marking from following that player, and it happens all the time. But what happens when it happens more, it's often because the stack itself is shorter, and it's really difficult to run through a stack with lots of people pushed together a bit. So Otago might be thinking about adjusting that stack somewhat.
Great dive catch there. Oh, and an opportunity may have been spotted, and that is the point for Otago.
That is excellent. That has put them up again. They will be very much celebrating that point.
Great catch there from Callum Shimon, doing a great job at just like making himself space in the end zone. This point could be it for the game.
And that was,
if we see it here on the replay, just number 4. Oh no, I believe yes, number 14 passing it here. That was passed from 14 to them and then passed to 10. Brilliant job there, Callum Shimon. That could be the final point.
It'll be interesting to see how Wildcats play from here. Obviously, Otago's got that little bit of advantage, and if they keep holding their offensive points, they will be doing a win for this game, essentially.
Both teams have played fantastic today. A very close game with some amazing plays, a lot of dive catches, a lot of great deep throws.
I imagine that with 7 minutes on the clock, the Wild Kittens might be looking at stacking their lines a little bit more. So a stacked line is often when you put your more experienced players onto your lines in close matches so that you can get that point and win the game overall. So it will be interesting to see if a different set of players affects the way that the game is played on the field.
Otago's classic floating defense, managing to get it all the way into the end zone. A great distance and time for them to set up.
Sticking with their 2-3-2, which has been pretty effective in making the other team make a lot of passes. And the appeal of making the other team make a lot of passes is that the more passes there are, the more opportunity for error there can be within the team.
There's a great vertical pass there. Oh, this is going to be a hard catch. Great job there from Wildcats.
And Sam Masters makes it look easy there with just an easy snatch. And you can see there's quite a lot of space for those players to move up and down the field. There's a lot of open gaps. And you can see that the Wild Kittens are taking those opportunities.
They're doing a great job at just moving the players, marking them around, and making as much space as they can. Great pass there. Unfortunately, the frisbee just drops.
So it looks like that last throw, just like not enough spin on the disc. Sometimes happens when your fingers get a little bit caught on the frisbee, and it just dropped quickly.
It was a good-looking play, identifying the gaps, but unfortunately just couldn't get off the ground and just that little bit too short. Potentially, an immediate deep pass from Otago, working their way all the way up the field. If this is going to be a catch, great defense there from 83.
Sam Masters there with that defense.
Once again, this could have been the game turning around. Otago just picked up the disc and immediately went for a very, very deep pass. We'll see it on the replay. Just soaring, but great defense there from there.
Pretty difficult shot with how tall Sam Masters was compared to the other player running down, but an excellent D nonetheless.
A very important block for the game, as a 2-point lead is very hard to come back from at this point in the match with 5 minutes left on the clock. Wild Kittens doing a great job of just immediately getting back into play with their same technique of just passing between the handlers and making their way up.
And I imagine that they will keep using that technique with those two players like favouring that deep space on the Otago defence. They might just look for those handlers and then through the zone.
One thing I've noticed is Otago's handlers have a technique of just passing it between the back line, whereas Wild Kittens, when they notice a gap in between them, they're not afraid to throw it forward.
You'll actually notice that oftentimes they throw it sideways and then forward because they get given that space. So you'll see this one probably sideways and then the next one probably forward, depending on where the space is.
Maybe needs more. There it is. And another one. There's a lot of space here for Wildcats to make something happen. This point could tie back up the game if it is made.
And you can see that being the fatigue of the Otago team, it's very difficult to keep that intensity throughout the points.
And on defense, you really have to move around. It doesn't take the disc any energy, unfortunately.
And so that there has been a foul uncontested. So the player on the mark looks like they contacted the person with the disc while they were throwing.
And they recognised that was a mistake, and they just resumed play.
Easier. So the disc will come in from 0, resetting that stall count.
A great thing about Ultimate Frisbee is it's sometimes really easy to tell when a contact has interrupted play, and then both players can be.
And then we've just seen another one coming with the intensity of that game. 99 just came through and whacked the other player's arm, and you can see he's immediately uncontested that foul. And everyone's just taking their time to get back to where they were when the foul occurred.
It's the heat of the game.
It's very difficult to build that intensity without building a little bit of contact, but you can see that the players are recognising that contact and accepting the results of that.
Number 12 in Wildcats doing a great job at making himself available.
And Sam Masters with an excellent grab and another scuba over the top.
Wow.
An excellent scuba. You can see that he favours those throws.
Was that Sam Masters again?
That's Sam Masters again with his
Brilliant
scuba.
job from a great defense from stopping a point to a brilliant assist with a scuba throw. Just getting it perfectly into the end zone. A great play from Masters. And here it is, just once again, just over the player, upside down. Too great. Bit of wobble. Not meant to fly that way, obviously, but a great job. A great catch as well.
You can really see the experience in some of the Wild Kittens roster. They oftentimes can see what they're doing and have their throw options ready before they even get to.
And this ties up the games with 2.5 minutes remaining.
It'll be very interesting. This point will be very important because it will choose what's if it takes more than 2 minutes, it'll choose what score will win the game essentially. So Otago will be looking to fight really hard here on their offense.
I'm always mistaken with how this ends. So if the timer runs to 0, is it next point and then one higher than that is the end?
The timer runs to 0 and then we have something called a soft cap. So the point that's playing at the time finishes, and then the person who has the highest number of points, you +1 to that one, and that's the points number that will win the game.
So we will most likely see a game that ends at 13 points.
And unfortunately there has been just a dropped pull there right away, so that's a pretty critical error at this point in the game for Otago.
I mentioned this at the start, trying to catch those pulls, it can get you a lot of speed and immediately have you going on offense, but dropping it just as a turnover so close to your end zone. This is an opportunity Wildcats could take. We could see a point before the timer even runs to 0.
And look like there's already been a pick in that stack there with a little bit of movement, with the disc slowing down a bit. And the disc is in there.
We will probably see a very aggressive defense from Otago here. A lot of space here for Wildcats. It's unfortunate for Otago with this turnover. It's very hard to... Number 12.
They're looking to be patient here, Wild Kittens. It's pretty tricky to score it with the intense defense that Otago's providing, but that was an excellent shot there to Angus Horan over the top.
A great catch there. The point that takes them ahead before the time has run out as well.
And so it's pretty likely that the game itself... We'll watch this replay first and then we'll talk about it.
Here we go. Just once again, just working the sideline and just having it so the disc curves back inbounds straight to your player, ready to catch it.
And an excellent toe-in of that line. Oftentimes when the disc is going out, they have to look at their feet while they catch the disc in order to get their feet inside the line when they catch it.
Doesn't matter if the disc is out of bounds, as long as the player's feet are inbounds, that is.
It's actually just the first point of contact. So if you're falling and your first point of contact is inbounds, then that's good.
Brilliant.
It's sometimes interesting to watch when people do layout bids on the field.
Another replay. Brilliant job.
And that has been the soft cap call, which means that the game itself will go to 13.
13 points. That means Otago need 2 points to win.
It does give the advantage to the Wild Kittens, who only need one to win.
But Otago are on offense, so if they can make this point, it'll be a very, very close game. Great job threading the needle, making their way up the field.
And you can see a more traditional match defense that's going on here with the Wild Kittens. They're marking their player very tight.
Great throw here, if this can get to the player.
And what you see
Hit
there
out.
is that player doing that strategic advantage of running out on defense, knowing that the disc is coming to the player waiting inside and pushing
We
the
see this
disc
replay.
out.
A great throw from Otago. If potentially it just drifted a bit more in. Turnovers at this point in the game can be detrimental, but they are great opportunities for the team that just need that 1 point to win. Wild Kittens are going to want to get it. I would not be surprised if we saw a very, very couple of deep throws. Oh, a good recovery there.
Bit of a
Turnover there
fumble,
would
but
have been dangerous.
And you can see this match style defense is just giving them a bit more space to move forward up the field here. There's a lot of big cuts going on, and a lot of players are getting quite open, which is nice for the Wild Kittens in their play.
Great passes here. 12 making himself very available.
And he's really up in that open space on that side of
Great
the
pass from
field.
Tim there, just staying in front of the defender. Unfortunately, the player was not moving when the throw went towards him. This turnover is essential for Otago to seize this opportunity.
Just an example of a bit of miscommunication within the team, which happens with all teams, is the player looking for something and thinking it's up, but it not being on at that point.
Great couple passes from Otago, setting it up in front of the defenders. So as long as Otago catches it, they're already in front of people they're supposed to be marking them.
And you can see Wild Kittens fighting very hard on defense. Every throw has a defender quickly following them in order to...
It seems like we've drifted more towards player-on-player marking at this point. I would like to say it is still... no, I believe it's still...
It's player-on-player marking, but what you will find is that oftentimes in this sort of situation where the turns are quite quick, there's not enough time to set up that sort of junky or zoney style defense. So the player-to-player is generally favoured for quick turnovers. And you can see that they haven't set... Again, they've stuck with that player-to-player defense for this final round. And that's an excellent cut from the back there by 73.
Just disrupting that defence, bringing a lot of speed.
The handlers, however, still looking at each other for those major throws, and an excellent pass forward to get those extra meters.
Great deep pass there. It could be into 73. If this is a catch, it is a point.
That is an excellent catch.
And that is the game. Wild Kittens have secured it with a fantastic last point, just managing to get it through all the defenders, taking them up to 13.
Potentially, depending on when the soft cap went. It looks like there's a little bit of confusion within the players of whether that's the game or not.
Minor discussion. The soft cap, of course, was before a play had started, but it is whether that play plays out first, and now it's first to the point above that.
I think that we may have been wrong with the previous call, and that's on me.
We apologise. As we assumed the point had not been played out yet, we thought the next point, we thought soft cap had already been determined, but no, that was the point, so it is
so
first.
It is first to 14 there now, so Otago will be fighting, but they are definitely at a disadvantage with this point. And this will be very hard to fight with Otago. I'm sure they'll be putting everything out there on the line. It's been such a tight match throughout this game that it's very difficult to have Wild Kittens be up by 2 as they were previously in the match already. I'm sure that they will be fighting with a lot of fire out here today.
There's potentially a lot of game to go. Although the timer has run out, Wild Kittens are on defense. It'll be hard for them to get a break to end this game.
It's very difficult if the game gets extended like this because the players often have a lot of fatigue.
For Otago there.
And you can see that zone setup that Wild Kittens has come in with. They've seen the effectiveness and they've taken it, and it's up.
Otago going for the deep pass. Oh, it's soaring into the...
An excellent catch.
Almost the entire field. A great job there from 74.
Jack Payne with an excellent catch waiting over there.
Fantastic job. The team celebrating very fairly. I mean, they soared basically across the entire field with that very deep pass, and I believe it was Sam Masters from Wild Kittens was doing a great job in defense, just marking the players. But it was a great throw. Just watch as it slowly just keeps going forward and slowly floats down. And just, it's when you jump, that's so important.
It is.
He picked such a good time. Great job there from Jack Payne.
This has kept the game going. Otago needs this for the game to continue. They have to keep scoring to keep that game going. So they'll be looking to score again right now because there is no other option for them. And Wild Kittens will be coming out with just as much fire.
We're back to, imagine when we said that it was first to 13. Imagine we're there now because once again, Otago is 2 points behind and Wild Kittens only need 1 point to win.
So a break is essential for Otago right now, but Wild Kittens will just be looking to hold that point. I'm sure they'll be looking at their safest options in their safe hands this time. A turn could be absolutely detrimental to them. So I expect to see a lot of small, safe play by the Wild Kittens working their way up the field as they've shown that they can do.
Well, that's the thing. They need 1 point. Otago needs 2. Otago is probably going to be a bit more, not frantic, I feel like that's not the right word, but they're going to be trying a lot of plays just to get over there, while Wild Kittens just have to slowly push and just get that 1 point.
Typically you see a bit more risk involved in the play that Otago will have at this stage in the game, as they just need that final push to that.
Absolutely. I mean, Otago's last play was definitely risky. It was a huge pull, throw from one of their players just straight to the end zone. This is a great pull.
An excellent pull. They've really pulled that back into the end zone, in fact. Huge defense there.
Wild Kittens doing a great job of just not losing position. A turnover here.
And Otago's doing a very tight zone. It looks matchy, but you can see, oh no, it must be matched. You can just see that one player poaching off, give me that nice little confusion there. 99 doing a bit of poaching, looking at that swing. And it's up.
It's gone much higher than I think the players expected. Great catch there, though. Once again, it looks difficult. Oh, a deep pass from Sam Masters. This could be the game if he jumps and catches it. This could be it all. And it's done.
Catch.
A fantastic catch. The game is over. Wild Kittens getting that point that they needed.
And number 14, Reese Hearn with that disc.
The Spirit Captain, a fantastic job at catching it. That is the game, everyone. We've watched a fantastic game. Here's the replay. Soaring. Looks a bit dangerous. Sam Masters still plucks it out the air. Defender jumped too far, and he sees his opportunity. Goes for the long throw. Just perfectly floats down. Great job there.
Excellent grab there.
Number 44 from Otago doing a great job of trying to defend, but unfortunately just grabbed out of the air. It was a great game though today, everyone. Very close. Only 2 points separating the two teams. A fantastic game going a bit into overtime.
An excellent game to watch with both teams fighting super hard at every point. Thank you guys so much for watching this game. Later on in the day at 2:30, we've got the Zodiac team versus Hammertron, Agents of Field, a fantastic name. I've been Will Druzianic. And I'm Caitlin Wood.
And thank you so much. We'll see you later in the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.